Hello, my name is Martin Crowley and I direct studies in Modern and Medieval Languages, or MML, at Queen's College, Cambridge, where I also teach French. I'm going to talk a little bit now about MML at Queen's, about the different members of staff that we have here who provide the teaching, about the kind of students that we have, and about what we're looking for in an undergraduate admissions application. So, there are two fellows in MML in Queen's. That's myself in French and Dr. Joana Citaridu in Spanish and Portuguese. Now, my specialist area is modern and contemporary culture and philosophy, and Joana's specialist area is Romance linguistics. So between us, we cover most of the kinds of subject area that feature in the Modern Languages course here in Cambridge. But we also in Queen's are lucky to be able to draw on the expertise of colleagues from other language areas in the faculty who support our students by directing studies in those language areas. And so we have external directors of studies, as we call them here, in Italian, German and Slavonic. So that means that between the five of us, we cover French, Spanish and Portuguese, German, Italian and Slavonic, and we cover most of the kinds of subject areas and topics and approaches that are offered within the course here. So we like to think we've got pretty good coverage. The way that we approach MML in Queen's is pretty simple, has two dimensions to it really. The first is that we work our people very hard. We expect our students to take themselves seriously, not only as linguists, but also as thinkers. We expect them to show commitment to their studies and to challenge themselves constantly by exploring and learning about new linguistic, cultural, historical, and so on areas. But in order to be able to work our people hard in this way, we also have to provide them with the very best support that we can. So it's a big priority for us to get to know our people individually and to work with them closely to support them through all of their studies to help them achieve the best that they possibly can. So what do we find in the kind of students that we have here in Queen's in MML? Well, as linguists, they are of course necessarily open to all kinds of different world views. That comes simply with the fact of studying more than one language. But what we find therefore of our students is that they tend to take a positive pleasure in learning to think differently and to see the world differently. This is what learning different languages will give you. Opens to you, of course, the cultures, which is to say, the ways of living, the ways of thinking of cultures across the world in these different language areas. So what we find in our students is, as I say, a positive appetite for exposing their own ways of thinking about the world, their own forms of understanding, to new and different ways of looking at the world that we come to through studying the language and culture of our various different language areas. So what we're looking for in an undergraduate admissions application in MML here at Queen's is basically those qualities. We're looking for, of course, a commitment to language learning, demonstrated in schoolwork, of course, but also in accessing other materials beyond what you're encountering at school, through things like online podcasts, for example, online radio broadcasts and so on. We're also looking for people who show an active interest in the culture and the history of their language areas. And that's also the case when people are applying to study a language from scratch. Now, in those cases, we don't expect you already to be able to speak the language, of course. If that were the case, you wouldn't be applying for it from scratch. What we do expect, though, is that you will have made some initial exploration of the language and thought about its relation to languages that you know, and ways it differs from languages that you know. And we'll also expect to see that you've made some initial exploration of the history and the culture of that language area in translation, of course, but nonetheless. So that can involve things like reading up on the history, watching films with subtitles, reading translated literature, and so on. So overall, what we're looking for then in an application, and the qualities that we see in the students that we have here in Modern Languages in Queen's, is we're looking for people who are interested in actively exploring their languages and in the cultures of the parts of the world where those languages are spoken. And particularly, we're interested in people who, on encountering these different cultures, different languages, different worldviews, as I say, are interested in thinking about how they themselves have been changed by that encounter. So if you're interested in studying MML at Cambridge, and specifically at Queen's, then please do look further, initially at the faculty website. Have a look at the information that's available through the admissions pages on the Queen's College website. And if you have any questions and you want to take this further, then please do feel free to get in touch with us via the admissions office at Queen's College. Thank you very much.